Hello and welcome to Canadianish Comedians. I'm Laura Toogood.
And I'm Julie Betts.
Today we have the pleasure of getting to know Precious Chong, an actress, comedian, writer, teacher, and stilt walker.
Yay, welcome.
Welcome.
Hello.
Hello. Hi. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for joining us. This is awesome. So we get the comedy stuff and the writing and all of that. That's what brought you here. Tell us about the stilt walking. How did that start?
I know. I just put it in there because it's funny, but I haven't done a stilt walking gig in a while, but I was a dancer originally in LA, and I met this guy named Roy Johns who was in a group called the Mums, and they were like a kind of rock and roll circus juggling group. And then Roy started another group called Girls on Stilts. And it was a group of women that I knew in LA. And he trained all of us to walk on stilts and juggle. And some of them are still my dear friends. And yeah, it's just something we did as like a side gig. And it was really fun. We did lots of like cool gigs and traveled around the world. I went to Japan. And
Wow.
yeah, it was really
That's
fun.
amazing.
And yeah, and I still did it in Toronto when I moved here. I have stilts. I think the last gig I did was for Pride before the pandemic. So it's been a while. It's been a while. But I mean, it's kind of like riding a bicycle. You just know how to walk on stilts.
Yeah,
So
you throw them
I
on and
still
off you go.
I still have them. I still have my costumes. I haven't given them up yet.
Oh,
But yeah, I haven't done a gig in a while.
Now, I've
that's so
seen I've
fun.
seen construction stilts, and they're like,
Yeah.
I don't know, 2 or 3 feet high.
Yeah.
But
I
how?
mean, I don't walk on very high stilts. They're about 2.5 feet, but they're peg stilts, which is a nicer,
Mm.
it's like just on a little peg. And so it just looks a little bit more graceful, but you have to move. It's not as s- uh, steady as a drywall stilts.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But they're a little more elegant, I would say.
Yeah, because the first thing I think when I see a drywaller on stilts is elegance, right?
Yeah, totally.
I did see a guy once at a Halloween party on drywall stilts, and he was Frankenstein.
Oh, that's
It was an
smart.
excellent costume, except it was in the
Yeah.
basement. The party was in
Oh.
someone's basement and the low ceiling, so he was like hunched over the whole time,
Yeah. Yeah.
dancing like it was
Yeah.
hilarious.
I mean,
Hilarious.
that's the fun thing. Like when we used to do gigs, as girls on stilts, we all wore identical wigs and masks. And we would do a lot of like Hollywood events. And the fun thing, it's a really fun way
Okay.
to go to a party because everyone
Mhm.
looks at you, but you're kind of incognito,
Yeah,
and you kind of steal focus. Like you are the most interesting person at the party, regardless of who's famous there.
yeah, that's amazing. That would be so much
Yeah,
fun. It would.
it's really fun.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes, walking on stilts outside at a, 4th of July or July Canada Day can be a little bit grinding, but
Mm.
sometimes it's really fun.
So you
Yeah.
So,
go ahead, Jules.
no, it's your question. You go right ahead, Miss Laura.
What?
What?
Whose questions? um, okay, so Precious, you teach comedy.
I do.
How and when did you get the teaching bug?
Well, I was approached by Kevin Frank, who used to run he used to be at with Second City, and asked if I wanted to teach stand up in 2016. And I had done stand up. I think I started in 20. I always did sketch comedy and acting, and I did solo shows, but I hadn't done strict stand up um, consistently. And I started, I think, in 2012. Um, so I was like, oh, I don't know if I can really teach it, but I said I'd give it a try, and I really liked it, and it was really fun. And so I taught taught at Second City until the pandemic. Then
Mhm.
they moved to Zoom, and then I was like, why am I teaching? I can just teach myself. If we're going to do it on Zoom, I might as well just do my own classes. So I started to just do my own classes on Zoom over the pandemic. And
Okay.
I have a group of people that I've been teaching. Some of them, they keep coming back and take my class. So it's nice to have like a little community. So I always have like a couple of new students, and then my diehards that have been with me some of them since 2017.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So yeah, it's fun. It's gratifying. I think I'm a good listener. I grew up around comedy, so
Yeah.
I guess I have an ear for it. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. We were going to ask you, like, how was it growing up in a very comedic, entertainment-based family? Like, did you feel the pressure from being from a very young age that you had to be funny or entertaining, or was it just something that came naturally to you?
Actually, not really. I mean, I never felt pressure to be funny or entertaining. Um, I was around it.
Mhm.
I didn't really think I was funny when I was growing up. I mean, I guess with my friends but it wasn't like something I think a couple things. I think at the time where I was growing up, it wasn't really like a female thing to be. I mean,
Mm.
more so, I wouldn't say like, oh, there were no female comedians, but it wasn't something it ever occurred to me. But my dad was, I mean, I was around comedy. My dad,
Yeah.
is Tommy Chong. So I was used to being around like comedians or comedic actors.
Yeah.
But comedians aren't necessarily very funny in person.
I was going to
I mean,
ask you that because we hear that
but
all the time.
my dad is pretty funny, and he's very charismatic, and he likes to
Yeah.
entertain. So, and then I have my older sister Ray Dawn, who's also a very large personality and
Mhm.
and then my other sister was a model and an actress. So, my sister Robbie, I interviewed her. I'm doing a documentary. It's a separate thing, but
Yeah.
I interviewed her, and she's like, Precious, our family was kind of like musical chairs. Like everyone kind of had to find where they fit in.
Mhm.
So comedy was already taken, so I didn't really think about it until later. And I was more thinking about being an academic or a writer or
Yeah.
a ballerina. But I guess, I mean, I was around it, so I kind of took it for granted, I guess. So I
Yeah.
hope that answers your question.
No, for sure. For sure. I know that a lot of the times just through osmosis, people become funny because of their families. You know what I mean? So you don't even realize it at the time until you're older.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh yeah, like I do have the same sense of humor as my parents or my sisters or brothers or whatever. And it develops without you even knowing it, right?
I think so. I think so. I mean, I do remember that when I was really little, I loved Peter Sellers, the Pink Panther. I
Mm-hmm.
loved Peter Sellers. Like that movie made me laugh so much, and I was very little. And so that was my first idea of like just loving someone who was really funny. And I have a memory because my dad and him they knew each other, and he
So
was supposed
cool.
yeah, and I knew his daughter Victoria because I went to
Wow.
elementary school with her. She was
Mm-hmm.
older than me, but we were all kind of in the same circles. And but when I was little and we lived in Malibu, Peter Sellers was supposed to come to a party that my dad was having, and I was so excited, but I fell asleep and I didn't get to meet him
Oh,
because I was like 7 or 8. um
yeah.
but I guess it was probably for the best because he was kind of a weirdo and
Oh.
probably would have, I mean, in the best way is a weirdo, but he was
Yeah.
definitely not, he wasn't like, hey kid, I want to be funny for you. I don't think he would
Yeah.
be like that.
Yeah.
He was more hardcore.
Hey, funny guy, tell me a joke.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That's awesome, though.
That's great.
yeah, it's cool.
So you do so many things because you teach, you write, you act, you perform. What if you could only do one of those things for the rest of your life, which would you choose to do?
Oh, that's a really hard question. Only one of them. I mean, I guess what comes to mind is it's a tie between writing and acting, but I love acting because I like to be around people, and I love writing because
Mhm.
I like to make my own things. So like, so I do like to, so it would be a tie between writing and acting.
Okay, that's cool. And you
Yeah.
did write and act in your own movie, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yes, we did see
With
it.
I co-wrote it with Zach Gain called
Yeah,
Homewrecker. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. It
It
was
was really
awesome.
fun.
So
Thank
fun.
you. Thank you. Thanks for
Very
watching it.
campy, really great.
Yeah.
We laughed.
Yeah.
So
Oh, good, good.
it was
Yeah, some
fun.
people don't realize it's a comedy.
It's hard. Well, actually, it's so funny because there's some close-ups. So, like when when you guys are fighting, and it's like I'm laughing because
It's yeah,
I mean,
it's
the fight
great.
scenes were terrible, but yeah, it was very low budget. We made it in my house. Uh, and yeah, it was really fun. And we're actually working on putting, like, we've been trying to get it together to make another movie, that us,
Awesome.
Alex, Zach, and I. Yeah, so hopefully we'll get something made sooner than later.
that's fun. Now, was that in your home in Toronto?
Yes, yeah, which I don't live in anymore because Metrolinx bought it. They kicked us out.
Yeah. Mm.
Ouch,
But
ouch.
yeah, it was in that's how we could do it for, that's how we got it made. It was like I had the location, my boyfriend, partner, I don't know, whatever you call him. He went away for 2 weeks so that we could shoot in the house. And yeah, it was crazy. It was a pretty ambitious thing to make this movie. And I think we shot it in, I want to say 10 days, but I think it was maybe even
Wow.
9 days. It was insane.
You would
Whoa.
never know that from watching it. There's no
Oh,
way.
that's
I would
good.
never have known that that was in 9
No,
days.
no.
Oh, it was crazy, but it was so much fun. It was
Yeah.
really fun. It
Yeah.
was so hard, but it was also exhilarating. I loved it.
That's great.
And it also didn't look like it was Canadian made because often,
Yeah.
you see Canadian made movies. Just growing up, you could tell the difference because Canadian made movies almost looked like the lighting was always outdoors.
Yeah. I'm laughing
what I
because
mean?
I always
really?
think of the Beachcombers, right? Like any Canadian production compared to like
Yeah.
a US production. So
Yeah.
different, right? I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I hope it looked okay. I mean, it was so low budget. We kind of were leaning into the fact that it was, you know, guerrilla filmmaking.
It was
Yeah.
great. It was great. Good
I
quality.
like that term too, guerrilla filmmaking. That's
Thanks.
awesome.
I mean, really, we barely, like, we scraped together money, shot it, and then we got some people who really liked it and gave us some more money to finish it. And then it got into some
Okay.
really great festivals. Like, it really did better than our wildest dreams. We just wanted to make a movie, and the fact that it ended up getting distribution was kind of like icing on the cake. So yeah, it was good.
It's and that's a big kudos to you because it is very hard in Canada to get funding to have any production made, right? Like compared to the US, there's just not the money, there's not the people.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, I know. We're kind of going through that right now. We thought, oh, we made a movie and it did a pretty good. It
Yeah.
didn't, and now we're like, okay, are people going to give us money to make another movie? But it's like, it's always the same thing. You have to start over and
Yeah.
do it again. But we just have to keep moving forward.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Speaking of moving, so you moved from LA, and then where did you go from there? Like you've been in a lot of different places.
Right. I lived in LA. Well, I was born in Canada. I was born in Windsor, actually.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm
nice.
so
my dad-
sorry. No, I'm just joking.
Crossing the border?
I haven't been there since I was born. So yeah, my
Get
dad was
out.
working in Detroit, and
Wow.
my mom, we didn't have, health insurance in the States, so she had me in Windsor. And then we lived in Vancouver, and then we moved to LA when I was like about 2. And I lived there until I was like, we moved when I was 13, and then we lived in New York briefly, and then we
Wow.
lived in France, and then I went to boarding school in Switzerland, and then I went to university in England, and then my parents moved back to LA, and then I moved back to LA, and then I was in LA until I was in my early 30s, and I did a play in Winnipeg, a
Oh.
weird co-production with a theater company in LA, in Ventura, California, and Winnipeg, Manitoba Theater Center. And I did a play there, and I met a guy named Wes, and he is the father of my son. And we got together and had this whirlwind romance. And I moved to Toronto to be with him, and we're not together anymore, but we're good friends.
Yeah.
And we have a kid, and he's 18 now. So I did my
Get
time.
out. You
I did my Toronto time. Yeah, it's so weird when I first was here in Toronto, because it was, I would say it was an impulsive move. I had never really spent a lot of time here. I think I'd done a commercial here. But I didn't know Toronto. I knew Vancouver because that's where my family's from. And when I was pregnant, I was interviewing for this job. It was a weird job from Craigslist. That's how long ago it was.
Yeah.
And this guy was like, yeah, I'm still in Toronto because my ex and I have kids, and pretty soon, like when they finish high school, I'll be able to move. And I was like thinking, wow, that's crazy
Long
to have
time.
to stay. Yeah, to stay. And then I'm like, oh, that's what happened to me too.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't. I like Toronto's a great city.
Yeah.
It's like it was a great place to raise a son, and the schooling is good. And I mean, the winters are, but yeah, it's a very livable city is what I tell people. And I did a lot of, like, I've met like really amazing, like Sandra Battellini and these people, and Crystal Bartelzi and Melissa Story, all these like creative people that I've met and collaborated with, and performed so a lot. So I've had a really amazing creative life here in Toronto. That's a really good thing about, I tell people
That's awesome.
who are stand-ups that, especially when they're starting out, like, stay in Toronto. A lot of people have said this, it's not just me. Stay in Toronto until you get really good and then go to New York or LA.
Yeah.
Because in Toronto you can really perform a lot. It's hard to get stage time in those cities. It's hard to, because there's so many people, and everyone is at such a high caliber. Not that there isn't good comedians in Toronto, but there's just a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of shows.
Yeah.
So you can get good fast in Toronto if you want to, because you can just go up a lot.
That's amazing. And we're like, I don't know if it's because we're focusing on women and the queer community in our podcast because we felt that they were underserviced. But I can't believe the sheer amount of incredibly funny and talented women and queer people that we've come across since we started this.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And I think, like, I know that there's always going to be variables, but I think that Toronto is pretty supportive of women.
It is.
And,
I mean, even since I've been doing it here, there's way more spaces and places to perform, more comedians. I mean, I have to give a shout out to Dawn Whitwell. Do you know who she is? She's a comedian. I took her class when I first started comedy stand-up in Toronto. Dawn Whitwell, she was a comedian. She is a comedian out in Toronto, and she was like annoyed that there were so few female queer comedians in Toronto. This was like, I guess this was like kind of like 20 years ago, maybe less, maybe like 15 years ago. And so she started to teach all female classes, all like non-binary.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so now there's like, and there was in my class that I took, and this was like a while ago, Alana Harkin, who went on to write at Samantha Bee show. Oh God, now I can't think of her name, but there was a bunch of really great comedians in her class that I got to work with. Yeah. So she really helped sort of foster and birth a bunch of female comedians in Toronto. So it's so good. Yeah.
You know what? We're going to look her up and hopefully get her on the podcast at some point, because
it
would be nice to have an innovator, right?
Yeah. And I think that's also why, like, Kevin Frank approached me to teach at Second City, was because he wanted more female teachers. He wanted more not just white guys teaching comedy, stand up, which, even now it's a little bit heavy, but it's way, 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 way better.
Yeah. I'm laughing because our stand-up teacher, very lovely guy, Peter Chanfrani, because he always gives me heck for not mentioning his name. He was your typical white guy, been in the comedy scene, stand-up, improv, all the rest of that. And it's like, oh, it's kind of funny. And I keep getting feedback from Laura, because she is doing your class, and she's like, yeah, it's really different. And it's great. It's good to hear the feedback.
Oh, interesting. How is it different, Laura? I'm just curious.
I think because it's not because it's on Zoom. It's because we sit around and tell each other, our feelings about what we've just heard, or like, we share ideas, and it's just way more collaborative, I think, than what we had. Um,
Right.
And nothing
I-
against Peter, because if
No,
he
no,
ever
no,
listens to
no.
this, he's going to be like, why are you
No,
dissing
no, it
me?
had nothing to do
No.
with that. It's just a different. It's just I don't know, and everybody laughs, and it's just
Yeah.
great.
More-
I just get so much joy from it
Yes.
Oh,
because of
good.
because of the
I'm not.
laughter.
I'm. It sounds like I'm like asking for. I'm just curious to see because we don't. Even when we taught at Second City, like we never knew how other people taught. Like I was always like, what are other people doing? Because
Yeah.
it's not like a set way of doing. I'm sure there's like definitely a curriculum, but everybody has a different style and a different.
Yeah.
So I
The only
kind of just
problem,
made
the only
it up.
problem, Precious, is that you make it joyful.
Aw.
Oh, that's
It
good.
truly is a joyful experience, and
Awesome.
Oh, I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Don't
And
make me cry. I warned you.
Oh. Laura's our crier. No, you know what?
Aw.
I think having a woman just gives a different perspective. And I feel like
Mhm.
not that men are not
Absolutely.
necessarily as supportive, but, and I hate to generalize, but I feel that a lot of men in comedy, especially like Caucasian middle-aged men, tend to almost feel like there's a lot of competition and that
Yeah,
they
I mean,
have to
Yeah.
not, and
Yeah.
not that Peter was that way at all. He's a genuinely lovely, lovely person, but
Right.
feedback that we've heard from others that have taken other courses and stuff like that, it's like, I think we need more women teaching. So thank you for teaching.
Oh,
That's
sure.
great.
That's good to hear. I mean, um, I think stand-up comedy is sort of a solitary pursuit, and it is very like, I guess, cutthroat, the energy of it.
Mhm.
But like, not everybody is in it to be like, hardcore cutthroat. I mean, I think both is valuable. I think it's good to have
Yeah.
like someone who's like more like, okay, like get the jokes. This is the structure. Bam, bam, bam. Even I didn't. I went through the Groundlings, which is in LA, which is kind of a lot of SNL people came from Groundlings, which
Mhm.
and it was very, as you get higher up in it's very hardcore and it's very competitive and
Mhm.
pressurized, like, which is what it needs to be because a lot of those people go on and be on SNL. For me personally, that environment was like not good for like it made me freeze up and
Mm.
I don't work well with that. So I think
Yeah.
that's my vibe is like, oh, I think people, well, for me, I'm always more I'm funnier when I have a feeling of like safety and doesn't
Yeah.
matter and nurturing.
Aw, very nice.
Yeah.
And
I mean, a lot of times people just need to feel good about themselves and then
Mhm.
they naturally kind of come to what whatever their truth is in comedy. That's what I think. I think everyone has like a point of view and a truth.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that everyone can be a stand-up or everyone is destined to be a comedian because,
Yeah.
and honestly, a lot of people, as I've taught over the years, I've realized like it doesn't necessarily be the funniest one in the class who ends up pursuing it. You just never know. And it's always like you never know who's going to be funny on stage. You never know who's going to keep
Yeah.
going with it. It's just you can't predict it. So
Mhm.
I don't know why I'm saying it, but so
No,
it doesn't
for
really
sure.
matter. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Just go out and do it. Try, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole
Enjoy
thing.
enjoy yourself.
Have fun. Exactly.
Yeah.
So what makes you laugh?
Oh, what makes me laugh? I mean, I like weirdness. I like weird things. I like
Mhm.
um quirky people. I mean, I really do love people. I have a soft like if anyone can make me laugh,
Mhm.
whether it's like my friends or uh a love interest, like that's high on my priority list. So a
Yeah.
sense of humor is key. But in terms of like what makes me laugh, when I was younger, I loved Andy Kaufman. I thought he was a
Mm.
genius. Like that was my
Yeah.
first memory of seeing him on SNL and doing that. What's that one where he sings the song? He just sings this song on a record. It's famous. Anyways, I just thought it was so weird and funny and
Yeah.
quirky. I loved it. So I like and I really love and then I really loved The Office,
Oh yeah.
the English Office.
Yep. The
Mhm.
original.
Yes. And then I love that kind of cringy, uncomfortable humor.
Yeah.
And so what makes me laugh? So yeah, that kind of thing. I mean, a
Awesome.
lot of things make me laugh. I'm an easy laugh, honestly.
Yeah. That's great. Us too. Us too.
Yeah. Yeah. I like laughing.
So tell us a little bit about your stand-up special.
Oh my God. Yeah. So Melissa Story and I, we had a podcast called Sex and the Single Parent. We started it. We were both comedians. We both are single moms, and we met. Like, I guess we started the podcast in around 2013, and then we started doing like videos on YouTube, like Funny or Die kind of stuff, sketch videos, and then we started doing a monthly show at Comedy Bar in 2016. So we host together. And then last year, she was like, let's record a special. Let's do it. Let's record a special. And I was like, oh, okay. So, so we each did 2 nights, and we each did about 40 minutes of material. And we're in the midst of editing it right now. And then we also have recorded our co-hosting, because we kind of co-host our show, and we pretty much ad lib all of our material when we're on stage together. But we've worked together for so many years now that it's really easy. Not okay, easy. It's very comfortable. It's very safe. I feel very safe up on stage with her. It doesn't matter if it's not funny sometimes, or if it is. It's just, we just are really, so we recorded that. So hopefully our goal is to have it edited and released and finished by the end of this year. So
Cool.
yeah, so it's basically yeah, and it's good. It was a good exercise, and it was the first time I recorded an album. I had to get my material together, and yeah, it was really fun. It was hard. It's hard.
It's a lot of work, I've heard. Not that I'm going to do one anytime soon, but anyways, go ahead, Laura.
Yeah.
No, I'm just curious. So it's going to be an album, not like a Crave or Netflix or.
Oh, you mean like well, we did shoot it, but it's more, Melissa was like, we should record an album, because a lot of comedians now are getting played on like the Sirius XM comedy station. So that was our focus. Right. But I did also have someone shoot it, so maybe we'll do a combo at some point. But the audio is the focus right now.
Nice. Well, let us know, and we'll promote it.
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
Of course.
Yeah,
we like promoting other people, not ourselves, just other people.
We want to help everybody, right?
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's the whole purpose of all of this, right? Is to help others. So
yeah,
I love that. That's great.
So you started a TikTok challenge
that
you gave to your students. I heard a little bit about it, but not much. So do you want to tell us how that?
Yes, I started it. Well, I've always been a little bit afraid of TikTok for some reason. I just don't understand it. I know it's good. It's a good platform for comedians. And so then I thought it would be fun to not take the pressure off and not make it a big deal, and just do something every day for 30 days. So that's what we've been doing. And cool. Sometimes I do characters and sometimes I don't. I'm just sort of exploring the platform, and then I'm encouraging the other people in the class to do the same. I had an acting teacher, Julie, in Los Angeles, Julie Areola.
Okay, like a nice name. Yep.
So
is that Italian? Is that Italian?
Yeah, Italian. Yeah. She's Italian, and she's a great teacher. She still teaches, and she would always have really fun projects, like especially after pilot season, she would do these things called the project, where we would be divided into groups, and we would have a theme, and we'd have to write a show in a week and perform it, and it was just about being creative for the sake of being creative. So she's my inspiration as a teacher to sort of just foster that. Cool. Like, let's just try it. It's fun. It's, yeah. Social media is weird.
It
It's so
is.
weird,
It is. Like,
but it's necessary.
yeah. And it's amazing what takes off and what doesn't take off. And it's like literally you can have one video that you have no idea that anybody will think is funny that won't go anywhere. And all of a sudden you're at like 50,000 views or 100,000 views. And it's like, why did that happen when you've put out other things that are 10 times funnier, so much better, that get no traction?
Yeah,
You know?
it's kind of a mystery. Yeah.
I've met a lot of influencers more in the beauty world than in anything. And some of them I'm like, why are you like, how did this happen? I just don't understand. And they're, 150, 200,000 followers. They don't work anymore. They just do all, which is, it's still a lot of work. I get it, but it's like,
Oh yeah. I mean, my parents are huge on TikTok. Like my mom and
yeah,
dad do videos all the time and they love it and they're great at it. So, it's not just for the young ones, but my dad, I mean, my
no.
dad has a following already, but I think a
Mhm.
lot of people have got, it's great. It's so great that him and my mom have really sort of dove into all the social media and
Yeah,
because they're creating a whole new audience for themselves. It's wonderful.
absolutely.
It's amazing. It is.
Yeah.
All I was going to say is that a friend of mine um, took a video of another friend of mine doing a one-handed egg crack, and I don't know, within days it had thousands of hits. Just, just, just how to crack an egg with one
Yeah,
hand and no shells.
That's wild,
I
right?
know, it's crazy.
yeah.
Because as you
Yeah.
were saying, one thing might take off, and the other thing's like, but this is so funny. How come this isn't getting hits?
I
Mhm.
know.
I don't
But
know.
then
It's a
I guess
mystery.
it's like there's no rhyme or reason to it, so it takes the pressure off, I guess. It's just putting content out there if you
Yeah.
want. I mean, I
Mhm.
guess I have a student, well, she took my class. I wouldn't call her my student, but Laura Ramosa, and she does really great characters, and she's huge now on Instagram, and she just was at Edinburgh and she's now going to
Oh, good.
do her show in London. So it's like for comedians who are starting out, it's such an opportunity to sort of
Mhm.
bypass gatekeepers, bypass a lot of the stuff, and create your own audience. I mean, that's what's so sort of amazing and
Yeah,
revolutionary about it.
It's so
for
true.
sure. That's
Yeah.
really good advice to new comedians, honestly. Is just start putting your stuff out there. Put it on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, wherever, because you will get that exposure that you may not get in a club, right?
I mean, over the pandemic, um, I think there was some comedians like Meg Stalter. I don't know if you know who she is. Meg Stalter. She's on TV shows now. She was on that show, oh God, about the older comedian, female comedian, and did you watch that show? The younger one from Vegas. Oh, I can't. Hacks. She was on the show Hacks.
Okay. Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
good TV show.
Yeah.
I recommend it. Anyways,
Awesome.
she would post these hilarious videos on Twitter, and that's how I started to know about her. Melissa told me about her. They're so funny, and then I
Mhm.
think that's why she got hired. It's like there's a whole, I think, talent. If you're talented and you have something to say and an interesting perspective,
Yeah.
it's wonderful now because you don't have to move to LA or go on a million auditions. You can just put your material out there and people can find you.
And
And
fine.
I mean, if I'm not going to say it's that easy, but I'm saying that that's a possibility now, whereas before it was not.
Exactly. Like growing up, when we grew up, because we're all about the same age, it's like it would have been so much harder of a journey to get to
Mhm.
where some of these comedians have gotten as quickly as they have, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for
Yeah.
Well,
sure.
yeah, especially for women.
Yeah. True
Yeah.
that.
And and let's like stand-up comedy, especially the way it was kind of like there's a reason why women didn't want to like hang out. It took a certain type of women
Mhm.
to like sustain it because it's
kind of dusty,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, very like, yeah, but it's changing. It's changing.
Yes. We're definitely seeing a shift. We're seeing a lot of more female produced shows. We're seeing
yeah.
just like the rise of the female comedian. And it's definitely like a lot of the green rooms that maybe are not as welcoming are being called out, behaviors that aren't acceptable are being challenged. Whereas before you didn't have that option, you had to play by the big guys rules, or else you just weren't performing. You weren't doing anything.
Yeah, totally. 100%. Yeah, for sure.
It's nice to see. And I feel like it's been the last maybe 5-6 years that we've really seen that shift happening. And I hope that it just continues with the momentum that it has now.
Yeah.
Because we need more women and funny people,
It's just more interesting. It's just more interesting. Like, I don't understand why you'd want to watch a whole lineup of just one perspective, like one white 20-year-old dude perspective,
Yeah.
I have a rule in my class that you're only, like, especially for guys, they're only allowed one blowjob joke.
Well, we know
Not
some
in the whole
comedians
class,
that wouldn't work.
but like in a set, you can have one blowjob joke. I'm like, okay, I'll give you one.
Does that go for women as well?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
Because I feel like, I mean, I get it, but I feel like sometimes it's not a challenge to, like, sort of, it's an easy way to be funny or provocative.
Mm-hmm.
I'm being judgy. I just think it's, as a teacher, I think it's, if you're going to take a class, you might as well kind of branch out and try other things. And then honestly, it's just taste. Comedy is just subjective taste, right? So my taste. So if you take my class, I'm just going to give you feedback from my taste. It's not going to be right. It most probably is just my perspective. So it doesn't really.
Yeah.
So I get to tell you, I don't want to hear anymore. I only want to hear one blowjob joke.
Damn it, that's how we were ending this podcast.
You'll never get that from me, I'll tell you.
No, Laura's not the queen of the blowjobs. No, she is not.
Stop it.
Not anymore. Oh, stop.
Yeah, my crown got tarnished.
Yes.
What type of just talking about edgelords and all that gucky stuff, have you had any types of hurdles to overcome at all?
I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to, I think for me, I think there's always this sort of, for my hurdle, I think, is an expectation of who my dad is. I think it helps, and it's also sort of like not a hindrance, but like people have like an idea, oh, you're Chong's daughter, or oh, are you funny like Tommy Chong, like that. 'Cause sometimes that's annoying because I'm just a different type of comedian. I mean, I think I have aspects of it, but I'm not like a stoner comic. I mean, I can talk about my childhood, which has a lot of stoner humor in it, but I think for me that would be something that I've had to overcome. I always get neurotic because I'm like, is it really a hurdle because I'm a woman, or is it just because I'm not funny enough? And I think that's where women get like, you get like messed up because you're like, well, maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not funny. And then, as a performer, you're always like second guessing yourself. So you're like, well, is it that I'm a woman, or is it because if I was funnier, then maybe I would get. So I don't know.
That's good. That's good though.
A blatant hurdle. I mean, I think I tried stand up, and I was friends with a stand up in my 20s, but and a part of me is like, why didn't I just keep going? I think I didn't have a strong enough point of view then. I was still in my like trying to please men stage, I think. People pleaser. I mean, I'm still a huge people pleaser, but I think even more then. And also it was hard to like get stage time. It wasn't easy. So I kind of just let it go. I was like, oh, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
At that point.
Well, we're glad that you came back to it. Right?
I mean, I tried to get away from it as much as I could. Honestly. I like fought it. Like I did solo shows, and my dad would come see it, and he'd be like, "You're doing stand up." I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm an actor." And I think even now, I love comedy and I like stand up, but I think I have a lot of respect for stand up comedy, and I kind of go in and out. So I'm not a yucks comic. I'm not a road comic. I'm not a club comic. I say that with like the utmost admiration and respect, because that's a
Mhm.
whole, that's like, you know, being a jazz musician or
Yeah.
a professional ballet dancer. Like you have to work at it all the time and be writing. And, you know, even my dad says that, like, you know, he was performing a lot as a stand-up and then he kind of stopped. And then he's like, yeah, I don't want to go back, because you have to like,
The lifestyle.
you have to get your, yeah, you have to perform all the
Yeah.
time to stay good. And
Yeah.
that's why all these like Chris Rock, really, Dave Chappelle, I mean, they're going to be doing those nights, they're dropping sets at places, because you have to put in your hours regardless
Yeah.
of how established or good you are.
Mhm, mhm.
Because everybody, you have to work your material and in front of an audience, just like an open micer, which
Yeah.
I think is kind of admirable. I think that's beautiful. I
Mhm.
think I love anything that is that all encompassing, that's hard. Like I love anything that seems easy,
Yeah.
that looks easy if it's done masterfully, and is that hard to do.
Yeah.
I like that. I like those kind of things.
I agree. And I think
Like
that stand
mastering.
up, sorry. Yeah.
No, no. And what were you going to say?
Yeah.
You think
No,
that's
I think that stand up can keep people very humble. Like there are a lot of these really good comedians, and we've seen them come and go, who they have their good set and then they never develop it beyond that. And when they get in front of an audience again to try out new stuff, it doesn't go over as well as they expect. And it changes everything, right? So you, like you said, you definitely have to put in the work, and you have to keep on top of things and continue to grow and adapt your sets and all the rest of that.
Yeah, it's not for everybody. It takes a certain
Mhm.
type of person. It takes a certain stamina.
Mhm.
Yeah.
For sure. Sorry. So we believe that if you say it out loud, it will happen. Do you have anyone that is on your wish list to collaborate with?
Oh my God. I love that question.
Is Laura's question, just by
Ah,
the way.
Laura,
I won't take credit for
great
that.
question.
be careful what you say here, Precious.
Oh my God. There's so many people.
Oh, Laura's like, pick
Laura.
me, pick me, pick me.
I
I'm
mean, is
kidding.
like collaborate with
In any way,
in
like a
any way?
film, a comedy special.
You
I
know,
mean, I love Paul Thomas Anderson. I would love to work with him. I think he's amazing. I love because my brain doesn't work anymore. Who's that comedian?
Okay.
Hold on, I'm gonna look up his name. Thank you
was
for
it Zach who you did the movie with? No, I'm kidding.
no, I'm gonna be working with him again. Bo Burnham. Bo Burnham.
Oh, Bo,
yeah.
yeah. He's awesome.
I think he's amazing. I mean, I think Greta Gerwig is a genius,
Absolutely.
and I'm so happy for her.
Mhm.
I think Kristen Wiig is a genius.
Love her. Yeah.
And I also think, and I loved Arrested Development so much.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It was the
Love it.
best.
I
I've watched that
loved it.
at least twice.
I've
Yeah,
watched it so many times, especially with my son, and we just love it. And I love Larry David.
of course. Yeah.
So that's like my comedy. But I mean, it changes all the time. Like when
Mhm.
I'm probably leaving out somebody, I don't know.
Well, I think
I lo-
that's a good list to start with.
Oh,
Okay, good,
Right.
huge. Lovely.
good.
Yeah, I was just gonna say about Larry David. So when I was binge watching Curb Your Enthusiasm, I had to stop every so often because he would do things that were so wrong, you know, and it's like, I can't watch this, I can't see this through.
I know. I
That's
know.
awesome.
And then I
It's
go
like,
back to it like 2 weeks later because it's like, okay, I think I've settled down enough. I can finish watching this episode.
I know. It's so stressful. But it is like it's so much fun now with my son to be able to like share these movies that I just or television shows or creators like Larry Day, Curb Your
Mhm.
Enthusiasm. He's a huge Curb Your Enthusiasm fan, and Arrested Development
Yeah.
fan. And that is really fun to like share your love of certain shows and comedians with my son. It's really nice. And he has a similar sense of humor. Um,
Awesome.
yeah. And Do you remember Dr. Katz? Did you ever used to watch that? It,
I
it
don't
was like
know.
from the 90s, and it was a cartoon, but it was on Comedy Central late night. And basically he's a comedian, and he would just pretend to be a therapist, and he interviewed comedians, and they would just kind of do their set, but in an
Yeah.
animation. It was such dry, funny humor, and I've been a huge fan of it as well for years. So yeah, I told my son Jack about it, and we would watch some of them. They're really funny.
It wasn't
Nice.
in the same type of genre as Ali G, was it?
No, it was way drier. The guy who does the voice of Bob's Burgers, he played the son in it,
Okay.
and Sarah Silverman's sister, played
Hmm.
like the therapist assistant, and she was like just really like dry and blasé. It was just a really cute show. It was really ahead of its time.
I'll have to
Um,
check it out.
Yeah.
yeah, it's fun because all these famous comedians like from the 90s um, do guest spots on it.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Now, is that Dr. Katz like Katz?
Yeah, Dr.
Yeah.
Katz. You
Okay.
can find them on
Awesome.
YouTube.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna look
yeah,
it up. That's
definitely.
great. Just to almost start wrapping things up.
Yeah.
What are you currently promoting? What would you like our listeners to know about? Is there anything special?
Yeah, so we'll keep a lookout for our double comedy album coming out by the end of this year. Tentatively titled Crazy Girls.
Oh, cool.
There's a reason for it. And then we Story and Chong, we run a monthly comedy show at Comedy Bar in Toronto, the third Tuesday of every month.
Comedy West?
Bloor West.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Blur West. Yeah.
And what else?
Ooh,
Yeah,
your
and
doc.
I made a documentary. Um,
Yeah.
I'm editing a documentary right now where I entered a ballet competition a couple years ago, and I documented myself doing preparing for it, and
Very
sounds like waiting for
cool.
Guffman. It is kind of
Yay.
waiting. It's like true life waiting for Guffman.
Nice, nice, nice.
That's awesome.
Oh, another huge fan. I love Christopher Guest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes. Now Mike White, Lotus. That's who I'd want to work for. I love Mike White.
Oh.
I love
Right.
Molly Shannon. I love Jennifer Coolidge.
Oh, me
Um,
too.
Oh my God. That
Yeah.
was so good. That was so good.
So good.
Yep.
Blew me
Yeah.
away.
And Molly Shannon is a huge, I'm a huge fan of hers. And
Yeah.
I, to name drop, but not really. I dated her roommate in the early 90s. So very briefly, but I met her when she was like waitressing, and if you read her book, it was like
Oh,
early 90s. And we went and saw her do like a workshop performance for like her comedy show, and she had other people in it. But I remember she did Catherine Mary Gallagher. She did that.
oh, love it.
And but this was before SNL, and I was like, who is she's like the most I literally was like, that's the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. She's the most talented person I've ever seen. Literally, I was like, there's nobody funnier than her. I've never
Yeah.
seen something so crazy and outrageous and open-hearted. So it made me very happy that she got the success, because
Yeah.
it's so well deserved.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Wow.
nice.
Yeah.
She's amazing. And you're amazing. Yay. All
Yeah,
these
so
great things coming.
Just the last question that I wanted to throw out there is what, and we like to ask this, is what kind of advice would you give people who are just starting out in comedy?
Yeah.
Besides take your course.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Yeah, take my class. I don't have a website. I'm working on a website, but you can just email me at preciouschong@yahoo.com. I know I'm so old school. I have a Yahoo account. I also have a Gmail, but that's like fancy. What advice? Well, it's simple, really, is perform as much as you can, get out there as much as you can. Maria Bamford is a comedian I admire, and she's like, make it as easy as for yourself as possible. So, if you don't like going out at night, then make an afternoon show in a coffee shop once a week with your friends. Like, you know, make it nice for yourself, but also it's really about getting out there and performing and building confidence. I know for myself, I would always be really impatient and want it to happen now. And why isn't it happening? And I think the focus is really better spent on, you know, performing and enjoying the process and all the things that I'd never listened to my dad giving me advice, but like really, yeah, like, because it's really about finding your voice and sharing it and being and being your authentic self as much as you can, because that's the only thing that's special in the world, is like you in your purest form. I think it's hard, especially when you're younger. You're like, but so and so is funnier or better, or da da da, or why can't I be more like that? And I guess there's a way of finding yourself through copying, but it's really just about enjoying the process, working as much as, you know, getting out there as much as you can, and being nice to people,
Mhm.
being someone people want to work with, you know, stay out of your ego, and make your own opportunities. Don't wait for
Yeah.
people, don't wait for
Good.
people to give you a part in a movie. Just make your own movie with your friends. Like that's like, don't wait, just do
I
it.
agree 100%.
Exactly.
Yep.
Me
Awesome.
too.
Thank you so much
Like
for your
you
time.
guys are doing
Thank
it.
you.
Thank
Yay.
you. Yeah, we are.
We're trying. We're getting there. But we appreciate you spending the time with us, and it's awesome getting to know you. Like, I now realize even more why Laura talks so highly about you.
Oh, that's
And
nice.
yeah, I know that we'll keep watching you and following you and see even bigger and better things coming from you. It's exciting.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. Thanks so much. This has been really delightful.